What if scientists could pinpoint almost the exact moment humans started wearing clothes? Not through fabric, not through ancient garments, but through lice. Let that sink in. This sounds absurd, but it might be one of the strangest, most clever pieces of detective work in human history. Think about this. Humans have two distinct species of lice: head lice, which live in hair, and body lice, which live specifically in clothing. Body lice can't survive without fabric to cling to, which means body lice couldn't have existed until humans actually started wearing something. Let that sink in. By studying the genetic divergence between these two lice species, researchers estimated roughly when clothing first appeared. The answer surprised almost everyone: somewhere around 170,000 years ago, long before agriculture, long before permanent settlements. Clothing wasn't a late invention. It was ancient. So why did it happen? The obvious answer seems simple: cold. But the real story is more complicated than that. Think about this. Humans didn't start out needing clothes at all. Early humans evolved in warm African climates, bodies built for heat regulation, not cold protection. Let that sink in. At some point, humans actually lost most of their body hair, not gained it. This seems backwards for survival in a harsh world, but losing hair likely helped with something critical: sweating efficiently, allowing humans to cool down during long periods of physical activity, the same trait that made persistence hunting possible. But wait, losing body hair created a new problem entirely. Without fur, humans lost their built-in insulation. Think about this. As long as humans stayed in warm climates, this trade-off made sense: better cooling during the day in exchange for less protection at night or in colder seasons. But something changed. Humans began migrating. Let that sink in. As groups moved into colder regions of the world, the same hairless bodies that once provided a cooling advantage became a serious survival liability. Think about this. A human without fur, without clothing, entering a cold northern climate wasn't just uncomfortable. They were facing a genuine risk of death from exposure. This is likely the exact pressure that pushed clothing from optional to essential. But wait, simply draping an animal hide over the shoulders was only the first step. Let that sink in. Loose hides blocked some wind but left gaps where heat escaped rapidly. For serious cold weather survival, something more advanced was needed: tailored clothing. Garments shaped and fitted to the body, not just thrown over it. Think about this. This required a tool that changed everything: the needle, a sharpened sliver of bone carefully carved, with a small hole pierced through one end. Let that sink in. With a needle, humans could stitch multiple layers of hide together, create fitted sleeves, enclosed boots, insulated hoods. This wasn't decoration. It was survival engineering. But clothing didn't only solve a temperature problem. It solved a mobility problem too. Think about this. Without proper clothing, humans were essentially trapped in warm climates. Certain regions of the planet remained completely unreachable. Let that sink in. Clothing may have been one of the key technologies that allowed humans to spread into nearly every environment on Earth, from tropical regions to freezing tundra, something no other primate had ever managed to do. But wait, clothing wasn't only about survival. It quickly became something else too: identity. Think about this. Once clothing existed, it didn't stay purely functional for long. Different furs, different colors, different decorations. Let that sink in. Archaeological evidence suggests early clothing sometimes included beads, shells, and carved ornaments, sewn directly onto garments. This wasn't necessary for warmth. It served a completely different purpose: communication. Think about this. Clothing could signal which group someone belonged to, their skill as a hunter or craftsperson, even their social status within the tribe. Let that sink in. Long before written language, clothing may have functioned as one of humanity's earliest visual communication systems, a message worn on the body, understood at a glance. But wait, there's another theory about clothing that goes beyond survival and status: modesty. Think about this. As human social structures grew more complex, concepts of privacy, ownership, and social rules likely developed alongside them. Some researchers believe clothing played a role in reinforcing these emerging social boundaries. Let that sink in. Whether this motivation came before or after the practical need for warmth remains genuinely debated. What's clear is that clothing quickly became about far more than temperature control. But wait, the lice evidence tells us when. It doesn't fully explain how humans got there. Think about this. Before true tailored clothing existed, there was likely a long transitional period. Simple hides, draped loosely, tied with basic cordage. Let that sink in. This wasn't clothing in the modern sense. It was closer to portable shelter worn directly on the body. Better than nothing. Far from sufficient for serious cold. Think about this. Evidence suggests this transitional stage may have lasted tens of thousands of years before tailoring technology fully developed. Progress wasn't instant. It was slow, tested, and refined generation after generation. But wait, not all early clothing looked the same everywhere. Think about this. Groups living in different environments faced completely different challenges. Humans in extreme cold regions needed thick, fully enclosed, insulated garments. Groups in more temperate climates needed something lighter, protection from sun, wind, or rough terrain, rather than freezing temperatures. Let that sink in. Clothing wasn't a single invention that spread everywhere identically. It was reinvented, adapted, and specialized by different groups solving different versions of the same basic problem. Number 3. Materials mattered enormously. Think about this. Not every animal hide worked equally well. Some furs provided excellent insulation, but were heavy and difficult to move in. Others were lighter, more flexible, but offered less warmth. Let that sink in. Ancient humans likely developed detailed, practical knowledge about which animals provided the best material for specific needs. Boots from one type of hide, outer layers from another. This wasn't random selection. It was applied expertise, built through trial, failure, and careful observation. But wait, making clothing wasn't quick or easy. Think about this. Preparing a hide involved scraping away fat and tissue, softening it through repeated working, sometimes using natural fats or brains from the animal itself. Let that sink in. This process could take days of dedicated labor for a single garment. Clothing wasn't casually made. It represented a significant investment of time, skill, and effort, which likely made early clothing genuinely valuable, not just functionally, but as a possession worth protecting and maintaining carefully. Number 4. Clothing changed how humans hunted and worked. Think about this. Proper footwear allowed humans to travel across rough, dangerous, or frozen terrain that would otherwise cause serious injury. Fitted gloves allowed for more precise tool handling in freezing conditions. Let that sink in. Every improvement in clothing technology opened up new possibilities for where humans could go and what they could accomplish once they got there. But here's something most people never consider. Clothing changed human bodies themselves. Think about this. Once clothing provided reliable protection from cold, evolutionary pressure to maintain thick body hair for warmth likely decreased even further. Let that sink in. In a strange sense, humans invented a replacement for fur, and their bodies gradually adapted around that invention, culture shaping biology rather than the other way around. But wait, if clothing is this important, why don't we have more direct physical evidence of it? Think about this. Hide and fur decompose quickly. Unlike stone tools, which can survive for hundreds of thousands of years, actual ancient garments almost never do. Let that sink in. This is part of why the lice evidence became so valuable. It offered an indirect, but remarkably reliable way to estimate a technology that otherwise left almost no physical trace behind. Think about this. Our understanding of ancient clothing relies heavily on indirect clues. Bone needles, scraping tools used to prepare hides, ornamental beads found in patterns suggesting they were once sewn onto fabric. Let that sink in. We're reconstructing an invisible technology, almost entirely from the tools used to create it, rather than the clothing itself. Think about this. This timing lines up with something else remarkable. Around the same period, evidence suggests modern humans began pushing further out of Africa, into the colder regions of Europe and Asia, regions already inhabited by Neanderthals, who had adapted to the cold over a much longer period of time. Let that sink in. For modern humans to survive, let alone compete in these environments, reliable clothing wasn't optional. It may have been one of the deciding factors in whether an entire migration into a new, hostile climate succeeded or failed. So why did ancient humans suddenly start wearing clothes? Not for a single simple reason, but because survival demanded it. Technology enabled it, and human social life quickly built meaning on top of it. Think about this. A single hairless, vulnerable species found a way to survive nearly every climate on the planet, not through biology alone, but through invention. Let that sink in. Every piece of clothing worn today traces back to that same original problem. A body built for warmth, thrown into a world that demanded protection from cold. And somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, someone picked up a sharpened piece of bone, threaded it with sinew, and quietly changed the future of the entire human species.